G'day, welcome to the 20th of April 26th edition of Message of Hope. My name is George Louis, 8 years old, and that's how old Kaisen Hunter was when he decided to do something about it, something special. Let me keep going. You see, every weekend Kaisen and his family would have breakfast at their local Waffle House in Little Rock, Arkansas. That's in America, if you didn't know. So they went to the same booth, probably, same waiter. This is a man named Devonte Gardner, who had memorized Kaizen's order. That's how well known he is, I guess. Scrambled eggs with cheese, no toast, hash browns covered with cheese, and an Arnold Palmer. Anybody like Arnold Palmer here? Hit me up in the comments. And every time Kaisen walked in, Devonte gave him a high five. Bam! And that was the deal between them. Yeah. At some point, Kaisen found out that Devonte had been living in a motel with his wife and 2 young daughters for 8 months. Yes, 8 months living in a motel. Because they couldn't afford a car. Walking to work or depending on a lift. That was his story. Living paycheck to paycheck with nowhere left to go. So, Kaisen went home and asked his mum if he could start a GoFundMe. His goal was to get $500 donated to Devonte. Well, eventually they raised more than $100,000. That's how powerful social media is these days. And I have to tell you, when I came across that story, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It's a good story, right? I mean, I actually did a little bit of both, tiny little bit. Because there's something about an 8-year-old looking at what most adults will file away under someone else's problem and just deciding it isn't. It's not his circus, it's not his monkeys, and yet there he is anyway. His middle name is Love, by the way. Kaisen, that is. His parents named him Kaisen Love Hunter. Now, I'm not making that up. You can go and search for it. Well, here in Australia, the headlines are telling a different story about where we are as a nation. The ABS, Australian Bureau of Statistics, reported recently that nearly 1 million Australians are working multiple jobs right now. So that's close to 976,000 people, at least at the last count. That's an all-time high. A man was quoted in a recent report said this plainly: "There's just no way we can afford the life we want without extra income." Now, that's not a fringe sentiment right now. That's the texture of ordinary life for a lot of families out there. These kind of reports are happening every single day. Yeah, I find myself asking the question I suspect you're asking too. How did we get to here? How? Because I'm old enough to remember a version of Australia that felt generous and spacious. It's not perfect. We don't have any perfect country in this planet, but a country that prided itself on looking after the person next to you. It's got the fair go mentality. Something in that has become harder to find recently, I feel. But that's just my only perception, of course. Again, hit me up in the comment if you think differently. But here's what I want to hold on to, because Kaisen Hunter exists. An 8-year-old doing cynical very well. Don't do cynical very well, I'm saying. Which is, I think, rather the point. Yeah. Okay, so if this is interesting to you so far, please subscribe to this channel. Stick around, give me a thumbs up. Yeah. And share this video far and wide. Because like I have done before, over 100 videos ago, there's more of this coming every day. Now, what does any of this have to do with scripture? Because you know that's my favorite part. Well, it's more than you think. Have a listen to Matthew chapter 25, verses 35 to 40. "For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty or give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will answer, truly, I say to you, as you did it to one of these least of my brothers, you did it to me. God is in everywhere, guys. It's exactly what the Bible is telling us. So read that carefully. The righteous ask the question genuinely. Well, traffic in the morning. Lord, when did we see you? They weren't performing virtue for an audience. No. They weren't building a personal brand around their charitable giving. They served people who needed serving, and the revelation that it was Jesus all along, that arrived afterwards, not before it. It's the act of kindness wasn't the means to an end. Devonte Gardner wasn't a ministry project, was it? He was the man who gave an 8-year-old a high five every Saturday morning. It's the kind of kindness that came first. The $100,000 was just love that went viral. Now I know what it feels like to walk towards need and feel completely inadequate for the task. Because for a time, I volunteered on a St. Vincent de Paul soup fan. If you haven't done it, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a fan, well, 3 fans. It's got some food, some people who are hungry, and some who are cold, and many who are both. You pull up, you set up, and people come. Yeah. But I wasn't prepared for the conversation. I thought the job was the soup, and it is partly, and the food. But the people handing you a cup of something hot, it's also the person who looks at you long enough to remember your face the next time. And that matters more than I expected, because I never felt particularly heroic about those times. Whoever brings blessings will be enriched, Solomon said somewhere else in the scripture. And that's not a dividend promise. That's a description of what it actually feels like to show up for someone. That's very important, to show up. Now back to Matthew chapter 25, the part that still stops me. Again, the righteous asked, Lord, when did we see you? They didn't know. They were just doing what was in front of them. And in front of them were a hungry person, a stranger, someone living in a motel in Little Rock, Arkansas, with 2 daughters and no car and a long walk to work every morning. Wow, that's doing it tough. And the people who walk past Devonte Gardner every day, they didn't know either. They just walked past him. So, Kaisen Hunter asked his mum if they could do something. If they want to load a story about I don't want to load a story about an 8-year-old boy with more theological teachings than he can carry. But I think Jesus would recognize exactly what happened in that GoFundMe page. The least of these. A stranger had become a friend. A kid who looked at the situation and asked, what if we actually did something about it? My friends, here's what I want you to hear. Now, I know it's tempting to look at it. Nearly 1 million Australians working 2 jobs to make ends meet. Accused at the Vinnies and the Salvos, they're no longer than they've ever been at the cost of living and exhaustion you see in people's faces. And you feel overwhelmed. To think the problem's too big and I'm just too small. Have a listen to this. Kaisen Hunter set out to raise $500. While he had absolutely no idea how the story would end. And that is the thing about this passage. Jesus isn't asking you to solve poverty. He's asking you to look at the person in front of you. The hungry person, the stranger, the man who walks to work because he cannot afford a car. When did we see you? They asked Jesus. Well, every time you show up, every time you don't look away, and every time a child asks his mum if they can do something and she says yes. Yeah. $100,000 started at $500. And $500 started with high five at a Waffle House on a Saturday morning. Friends, let me ask you, who is standing in front of you right now that you can show a little compassion? At least give a prayer to him or her. Thanks for being with me today. I hope you have a pleasant day. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.